It's even worse at the moment because now he's coming out and actively campaigning to stop Brexit and campaigning to remain, and he's losing support in the Midlands and North, support that he needs to hold on to actually win an election against Boris Johnson, which we are going to have. It's certain, almost. You never know. You can never say definite, but he's going to lose support in the Midlands of the North that he desperately needs. He's lost that already, and not only that, Jamal. I saw 87.5% of all the the battleground states, you call them over here, but the battleground constituencies, the ones that he targets to win, to get his majority in the next election. Guess which way they voted for? 87.5% of them in the referendum. They voted to leave. Yeah. So he's screwed. He's he's shooting himself in the foot at every turn. And I'm like, why are you doing this? You've turned into dog shit this year. You were doing so well. When he was going away at Boris Johnson today, it was like, come on, please. And Dominic Raab, the foreign secretary, stood up yesterday, and I was like, come on. Start mentioning it. Now your gloves are off, take the gloves off. But he keeps battering around, take the gloves off, bang, Syria, bang, was it a false flag, bang, OPCW report, and then they bat away that question, bang, what about Venezuela, you're going to give them their gold back to Dominic Raab and all this, and then it was like, Boris Johnson, okay, right, take the gloves off, bang, Russiagate, Mifsud, you were pictured with Mifsud, come on. Yeah, honestly, you can imagine the only thing, this is right-wing nationalism that we are seeing over here, correct? You are seeing Boris Johnson over here, the same as Trump. You might as well tape his hair, correct?
Well, I always say that you guys are a slight lighter than us. It's like we're your darker brother. Like,
Jamal, what is the only thing, Jamal, what is the only thing that will beat right populism in the current climate? What is the only thing that will beat right-wing populism in the current climate? Please tell me.
Well, it's left-wing populism.
Exactly. And he's not being populist. He's reaching... He's not being populist. He's reaching out still to the Blairites. Honestly, he has suspended the ballot trigger process.
It is the weirdest thing in the world for me to watch Corbyn do this. Because ultimately now he's getting the general election. His argument shouldn't be a referendum. His argument should be,
he's getting what he wants.
I'm going to deliver the Brexit that the public says that they want it, and I'm going to deliver it from my perspective. Because at this point, he gets what he wants. Like, it's one thing if you're in a situation where he's making the argument, okay, between a Brexit and a second referendum, I would take the second referendum between the two. But this is different. At this point, they're calling for a general election, in which case he has no reason to not implement the referendum. Like, he can literally say, I am going to implement Brexit in a way that I want to implement Brexit, but we are doing Brexit because the public said it wanted to leave. And start there. Screw this referendum stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need it. He just said he wanted a general election, which means the gloves are off from the standpoint of you hitting him. At this point, you're in an election time. Boris Johnson has... If you listen to Boris Johnson's speech, Boris Johnson is making it a foregone conclusion that there will be an election. He even talks in essence. He says, if you elect me as your prime minister,
Jamal,
you're already the prime minister.
He's got a majority of minus 43.
Yeah.
He can't do anything.
Yeah.
He has no working government.
He's powerless.
It's insane, but you're not good enough to negotiate with the EU. You can run the country, but you can't negotiate with the EU. What insanity is that? This is meant to be our prime minister.
What Boris Johnson knows is what you just mentioned. What he knows is that the public wants to leave. I saw polls that said that Britain would choose to leave even if it meant cutting off Scotland.
Absolutely.
Even if it meant dropping Ireland. Like, think about that for the moment. Even if it meant the dissolution of the European Union itself, the United Kingdom itself, they wanted to leave. And Jeremy Corbyn is being a Remainer fence sitter. And the weird part is he's a Brexiteer himself. He was a Eurosceptic.
This is the thing.
Before he got into this remaining nonsense.
His heroes. His heroes are Tony Benn. Somebody who was the most anti-EU. Tony Benn was on the BBC live back in the 70s to an audience of millions opposing the EU. That's Jeremy Corbyn's That's his hero. That's the guy he looks up to the most. He's been anti-EU his whole life. He gets everything. Boris Johnson has got a tenuous grip on government. Grip on government. He's about to give Jeremy Corbyn a clean break from the EU and a definite election. And Corbyn is going, no. How? Please explain how somebody like me is not going to say, okay, this is a fucking puppet show.
Yeah.
Whose hand is up your arse? You know? This is ridiculous. I've been saying for 18 months. 18 months I've been saying, they don't want to give you Brexit. And you know what? It looks like they're about to give you Brexit. And the one person, all the people who've been saying, I want a Brexit and they get everything given to them and then say no.
And by the way, the business community would support Corbyn on this. If Corbyn came out and says, yes, I'm going to deliver Brexit, I'm going to deliver my Brexit, the business community said, well, we don't trust Boris Johnson because Boris Johnson may leave or take us out in a no-deal Brexit. And so we'll go with the guy who, we think the guy's a socialist, but at the very least, he's not going to have a no-deal Brexit. Yeah, have you seen the financial channels on this stuff?
Yeah.
But the business community is like you would never. It would be like them supporting Bernie Sanders. It would be something like that, where they came and they're like, oh, God.
Have you noticed what that has coincided with in the media? You know, they're pro Jeremy Corbyn all of a sudden business. Do you know what they're not calling Jeremy Corbyn all of a sudden in the media?
Oh, what, a socialist?
Anti-Semite.
Oh.
Business come out for Jeremy Corbyn at the same time as all of the anti-Semitism smears cease.
They vanish because they're terrified.
Around election time.
Johnson scared the shit out of them. They're like, oh, God, he's going to take us out in a no deal. Oh, the socialists.
It's a theatre, mate.
Fine.
It's a theatre.
We'll take the socialists. I love it.
He has so much. I wrote this down beforehand, but all of the things that Corbyn is not. Remember, they're talking about Islamophobia in the Tory party, which is come on. You're talking. He's talking. They're highlighting Owen Jones' talking points and saying that the article that Boris Johnson wrote comparing Muslims to letterboxes, which was a simile, and the way he wrote it was just to provoke the other side into what the reaction they eventually gave. But they're attacking him over Islamophobia, and they're attacking him over this shutting down Parliament for 5 weeks. Now, that's what they're attacking him on, and they're out, and Diane Abbott is out, and they're talking in the streets about stop the coup, when all he's done is shut the government down for 7 days, and that could be a bargaining chip to try and get a better deal with the EU, to try and say, make them sweat a bit more. Because you know as well as I do, it's going to hurt the EU as much as us. And I just wrote down, he's not talking about the OPCW. They're not talking about the possible bombing of a false flag on Syria. He's not talking about Venezuela. He's not attacking them over that. He's not even talking about Israel anymore. He's not talking about that. He's not hitting them over. He had all the opportunities today in PMQs. His first one didn't. He's not talking about Russiagate. Not talk about Boris Johnson with Mifsud. He's not talking about the Novichok stuff. He could hammer him on the Novichok. Do you remember? Boris Johnson was certain that it was Russia. Do you remember? Yeah. He could hammer him on the Integrity Initiative. He could hammer him on Julian Assange's treatment. He could hammer him over the fact that they're weak on terrorism. They support terrorists. They create terrorists by bombing countries who then think, fuck this, I want to go over to the UK and blow some shit up because they blew my family up. He's not attacking him on any of that, but he's attacking him on some Islamophobia in the Tory party and the fact that he shut down Parliament for 5 weeks when he really shut it down for 7 days. Now, the thing is, Jamal, I think personally that he's sitting on a fucking arsenal of weapons that a true left-wing populist would just strike. He's not even striking a match and going, careful. He's not even doing that. He's shut the door and he's locked it and he's bolted it and he's talking about fucking Islamophobia. Why? A truly left-wing populist would open that door and unleash hell on Boris Johnson if he truly wanted power and if he truly cared about democracy in this country. Now, this is the thing. I've been losing subscribers from Jeremy Corbyn supporters. I get it. But I'm an honest actor here. I can only call it as I see it. And you have been sitting there across the pond, and you have been seeing this as much as I have. Well, certainly, you've been paying certainly more attention than most people in America, I would say. Certainly anybody in the media over there. What is your assessment of what I have just said to you? Am I correct in my criticism of him, or am I being too harsh? Because it looks to me like Labour are facilitating this. It really does, and it looks like it's a puppet show. Tell me what you think, mate.
Your show is named Gordon Dimmack. And as that show is named Gordon Dimmack, you look out at the world and you make an assessment. This is what I like, this is what I think, and people accrue to you based on that particular assessment. For all intents and purposes, from a policy standpoint, I would imagine you like Corbyn. It's like, I like what this guy wants to push forward, and I've supported Corbyn in the past. I think your issue is, it's like, I want him to throw a punch, and he's not throwing a punch. And not just not throwing a punch, the tenor that he is taking is going to make him lose. That's not a negative per se. That's more so pointing out something that, with my ideological framing, the context that I use to look at the world, I think Corbyn would be better off if he did X as opposed to Y. And it seems like he is essentially kowtowing to the Blairites in the party that hate his guts. I don't necessarily think that's an improper assessment at all. And I understand if people who like Corbyn, even if you like Corbyn, you have to be honest actor in regards to your analysis of Corbyn. Like, if I'm looking at Sanders and Sanders is pushing Russiagate, I'm going to ding him for pushing Russiagate because I think that is literally against his best interests, if that makes sense. Like, I understand why he does it. I even understand why he would go along with the currents in the party and so forth. By the same token, I don't like it. And so, I'm going to hit him for it because it's not my job to essentially go along with everything the person go along with, especially when I do not think it's honest or right. I guess you do the same thing in the same point of the UK. I don't like what Jeremy Corbyn is doing. Jeremy Corbyn is sitting on an arsenal that he can unload on Boris Johnson. I would wager there will probably be some things that will be more in line with the left and maybe not necessarily in line with the entirety of the country. And just like over here, that stuff gets moderated to some degree. But I agree with you in general. If he's not within, following a certain thing that you believe is right, the show is named Gordon Dimmack. It will be weird for you not to ding him on stuff that you think he should be following a particular line on, if that makes sense. Like, it would be utterly bizarre if the show is named Gordon Dimmack and you're taking the perspective of Bob, Euland, whoever the hell that is. Like, your job is to say Corbyn is messing up. Corbyn is going to lose this election because of what Corbyn is doing. That is a warning shot. That is hey, problems. Yeah. Pay attention to this. Massive. I mean, honestly, man, I saw the polling and it shook me. I want Corbyn in office.
Me too. I want Corbyn of last year in office when he was at Glastonbury. I want that Corbyn.
It's not like Tony Blair. Tony Blair doesn't want Corbyn in office. That's a different, the Blairites, the Tom Watsons of the world. Those guys will put a knife in Corbyn as soon as they can get the opportunity to do so. That's not this. That's not where you're coming from on this. You're coming from a perspective of saying, I want him to win. And there is a large part of the country that wants Brexit. And if he's going to renege on that Brexit, then he is to some degree a turncoat and he is not going to get my support. And if there is enough people like that, either the Brexit party or, I've seen the polling. The Brexit party has become a thing.
Yeah.
They have one thing. We're leaving. That's it. Yeah. That's the only thing on their agenda. They're a right-wing populist party. And they are eating the lunch of the conservatives that are wishy-washy on this front. And between them and the Labour and the Conservative Party, who seems like they're going to be making deals in regards to who they run in the various districts, Corbyn needs to be concerned. I strongly suspect that his reasoning, his hesitancy for that election is for that reason. I would wager he's seen those polls also.
Of course. If he was ahead in the polls, he'd be like, yeah, fine, I'll win and I'll sort it myself. But he's not ahead in the polls. And that's because he's been scoring own goal after own goal after own goal this year. And to all your Corbyn supporters who have, come down on me, I get it, all right? I get it. It's a frustrating time. But my job is not to support people. I do support people. My job is to call it as I see it. And what like Jamal said, I want him to see him. I want to see Corbyn PM, but Corbyn of 2018, 2017 is PM, not Corbyn of 2019. He's been dog shit. But I want to see that guy PM. And what I have seen consistently for the last 12 months is a man that is scoring own goal after own goal after own goal. And it's my job to call him out on it when he does that. So I hope you understand that. And Jamal, my buddy, he agrees with me. So you know what?
I agree with you. I mean,
yeah, there you go. You're wrong.
It would be weird if you didn't. I guess that's my point. That's my point. I mean, it is not your look. You're not a politician. It is not your job to just kind of agree or disagree with politicians. Your job is, my name is Gordon Dimmack, and based on my ideological beliefs and framing of the world, this is what I see when I look out at the world. I don't take it in anything that you said that says I dislike Corbyn. I take it as Corbyn is screwing up in regards to becoming PM. I see that even over here.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Like, so again, one of my subscribers sent me polling on this. And she was like, Corbyn is going to lose this election if he continues the way he's going. Now, what are you supposed to do?
Badly,
pretend that that's
not
true?
Badly. He's going to lose it badly.
And again, is your job to pretend that's not true? Of course not. I mean, imagine the situation where you're like, Corbyn is going to win, and he loses. And then you guys say, I don't understand how you lost. No, your job is to be like, no, dude, stop. Like, you're listening to advice from people who dislike you greatly. And it seems like I could see it. It's this pull to the Blairites. It's so weird. He didn't start off in this way. He started off with this notion of, I'm going to deliver Brexit in my way. That's how he started off. And when he was running with Theresa May, he kept calling, have an election, because he knew that he would wipe the floor with Theresa May in that election based on that polling. Because again, he was still going to deliver Brexit. He wasn't talking about a second referendum. He wasn't talking about stopping the Brexit, none of that stuff. He was going with Brexit. We believe in the referendum. And Theresa May would chide him over and over again. Is the Labour Party going to go through with the Brexit? Is the Labour Party going to go through with Brexit? Why? Because she knows that if he said no, that they were going to lose all sorts of support throughout the country. And what does he do now? Now he's gotten to the Blairite position. A Blairite position that lost the referendum. And look, the fact that you have a Brexit party, that's a thing in and of itself. And that Brexit party is getting a share of the electorate that could literally get seats in parliament. They have nothing else but leaving the country. And Jeremy Corbyn is going to take the unenviable position. The guy who was a Tony Benn School of Politics, the guy who was an original Brexiteer, is now in a position of a Remainer bent into form by people who greatly dislike him. Like, it's an extraordinary, weird thing. He has honestly, Jeremy Corbyn has zero reason right now, at this point, with Boris Johnson calling for an election, to toe any notion of a second referendum. He should say squat about the second referendum. He should say, I am going to deliver Brexit in the way that the public has said that they wanted it. And it is going to be a Labour Brexit. Stop with all of this other nonsense. Okay. He's called for a secondary election.
Now, here's what his supporters will say. His supporters will say, well, this was put forward and it was voted for at the parliamentary thing last year, and they voted for it, and that was going to be then their default position. Remember, and it was going to be a referendum with Remain on the table. That was going to be their democratic decider. To which I say, if that's the way Labour does things, then what's the point? They're going to lose, and they're going to lose. And I know people are going to be horrible to it. Just take a look around Europe at what has happened to the left-wing centrist neoliberal parties. Just take a look around Europe. Take a look at, Mark Blythe. You watched Mark Blythe, I know, Jamal, and he says, that in the Scandinavian countries, you used to be able to put a red rosette on a fucking dog and it would win. Now they have to do coalitions with right-wing fascists in order to get into power. The centrists, the neoliberals, they're reaching out to them. Those days are gone. You've got two ways of winning an election now. You've got right-wing populism and you've got left-wing populism. And what Jeremy Corbyn is doing, that ain't either.
So that's weird, man. Like, Usually in the UK, you guys are, well, like I say, you're a tick to the left, regardless of the political space, a tick to the left. And I often, whatever is taking place, meaning the currents that are taking place in one country often takes place in the other. It's so bizarre. So you would have Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, and what's his name, Tony Blair.
Tony Blair.
It was like these kind of weird back and forths. And now you have a situation where you may end up with Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. And right now you have in the UK Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn. It's so bizarre. It is so bizarre. The difference here is, at least in this country, Sanders is trying to knock it out the park.
Yeah, Sanders hasn't been scoring
Corbyn is trying to back away, which is so strange. It's so strange. It's your opportunity. You've been for 3 years trying to get this, and I don't know who's talking. I don't know who's whispering to him in his ear. And I know sometimes it's hard to kind of pull out of a particular political strategy, but pull up, pull out of this. Like, honestly, like, look, I understand, from the standpoint of, this kind of contextual way of trying to explain politics sometimes, but that doesn't really always work. And so sometimes it ends up with your fence sitting, which looks worse, than picking a pony in this case. Mm-hmm. In a situation where you don't have an opportunity for a general election, then I can kind of understand calling for a secondary referendum on what the prime minister is going to put forth as a no-deal Brexit. At the point where the prime minister, however, calls for an election, this is different. You're in a different world. And in that different world, you can go with a different political strategy. That strategy is, I'm going to get those people who want a Brexit, but don't want a no-deal Brexit. And you can get those people going with this notion that I am going to deliver my own Brexit. You should not be talking about a second referendum at this point.
But he is, and he's been forced into doing that because of the Blairites in the party. He's been forced into doing it because of the party conference. I think it was last year that they did this, but then it's the party conference that that was when the Blairites adopted the IHRA definition, or the full one, and we all know what a travesty that has been. It's been this reaching out to Blairites and these reaching out to centrists that has really cost the Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn any chance, I think, of becoming Prime Minister. I won't say he's got no chance whatsoever, but he's got to pull it out. And like I say, he's sitting on an arsenal of left-wing populist weapons, and he's not even striking a match and going, careful, Boris, careful. Yeah. And that should tell you all you need to know about whether he's got the stomach for this fight, in my opinion. I'm just calling it, the way I see it. I hope you understand that.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point.